Hello, hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Church in Action. Tonight, or this evening rather, I should say. It's now 6, so it's still evening, sun's still shining. But my name is Elijah Louis, and today the youth will be taking over Church in Action final episode. And for tonight's session, we at CYC have this little weekly thing called Awkward Conversations, where you'd come together and have the most awkward conversation ever. Anything and everything. So to pay homage to that and to keep in that manner, tonight myself and a fellow youth who goes by name Isaiah Sobers will be having a little awkward conversation on Church in Action. So without further ado, I think it's about time I call him. So if I give him a little 2 seconds, let me just call him. You had to use the technology. That is after all what it is. So that's the time. That's where it works. All right. I'm calling him now. 2 seconds. You know how Wi-Fi and things is lab. So once he come up, I'll allow him to introduce himself. But as I say, tonight's our conversation is about youth and communication. And with COVID and everything, as much as I don't like bringing it up because it's such a heavy topic, I mean, I think everybody kind of didn't like how COVID impacted them. So that being said, COVID has impacted communication a lot amongst youth. I mean, some may argue youth does always be on their phone, talking to each other, them communicating with people on the other side of the world, so you have nothing to worry about. But it's quite the opposite. Youth actually have been found to rely a lot more on non-verbal communication amongst each other. And I think Isaiah and I could have a good conversation about that, and see how awkward this conversation could get. Because we so accustomed to we message each other, but we see them the next day. So we had to overthink about what's going on and who mean what. So I waiting for him to come in, so we could talk more. Because I mean, I didn't wanna take center stage and talk about it. Hey,
Hello.
Isaiah, you reached long time no see. How things on your side?
Well, based on the conversation, I am not enjoying this quarantine, this pandemic, the whole social distancing thing. I am very, 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 very gregarious. I love people. Well, okay, before the pandemic, I did not love people that much, but this pandemic has taught me that I need them as much as I may not like all of them. I need them. Like, gosh, I like miss my best friends daily. Within a couple hours of a day, I go from seeing them every single day to not seeing them at all. And we're always talking on WhatsApp and Zoom, and that's not fun. Before I would greet them with a stoops or a grunt, and now if I see them like right now and get the chance to hug them, I might just get all emotional, which is not fun, but
I don't want to cut you off. But I want to, the theme is awkward. The theme of awkward conversations, having those awkward conversations. I want to throw something at you.
Go
You
on.
compare talking to your friends and things who I assume is around your age, but what about people of different ages? How has communication amongst those people kind of changed with you?
Hmm. I don't really know. It's definitely evolved. It's easier for me to talk to people older than me because that physical awkwardness that I tend to show when I meet you physically, first, it's totally eliminated. Like, look, I'm talking to you just fine.
Well, I mean, I mean, God, you're not a single mouth as if I so old. I around same age as you, you're not a cell mouth, so boy. Uh, but like, what about like when you're talking to your parents and thing? Anything different in that regard?
Oddly enough, I live with them every single day. I see them every day, and nothing much has changed. In fact, I think I talk to them a little less. Like, there's nothing going on. There's no new development, and the COVID pandemic. Everybody's stressed out. I've even found it slightly harder to talk to them now more than ever. It's weird. It's really weird.
Harder, you say? It's funny you should mention that because that's something that is always a conversation even before COVID with a youth, how we talk to older people and what older people expect from us.
Yes.
And recently I was on YouTube. I mean, you have nothing else to do but go on YouTube, Netflix, Instagram. I mean, TikTok is a whole different thing. You're just spending hours scrolling, just on TikTok. But besides that, I came across a video presentation by a local teacher, I think she is, but she was talking about the communication cycle as it was relates to youth and different generations.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
mean, if you have the time, I know it wasn't the plan, but you're open to going through that conversation and kind of talking and see if it relates to you as much it relates to me now, to see if I can answer why it's so much that you're struggling to communicate with them at times.
Let us see. Wait, no, I am not wearing a watch. Well, I don't really have much of a life, so let's go.
Right, safe. So you see, and it highlights like what is the communication process. You had to give me 2 seconds. I clicked the video while I was talking it because I kind of feel like you was doing, but Wi-Fi give trouble because everybody on their phone and think,
Hi,
here's it.
my name is JL Valdez, and I am.
So yeah, sorry for the lag. My internet's a bit slow. Everybody in my house on their phone and things. So you just had to roll with the punches. So and then on top of that, talking to you. So when it come back up, we'll just continue talking. But my internet's slow. But
I'm a counseling psychologist by profession.
Oh, there it is.
Today, we want to talk about awkward conversations, youth and COVID-19. What is the impact of COVID-19 on communication? What is communication even? How would we define it? By definition, communication is the exchange and imparting of ideas or transmission of ideas, information, opinions, or thoughts by electronic means, gestures, speech, or writing. Communication can be verbal in terms of the words that we use, language and speech, or non-verbal, our eye contact, our body language. So the basic communication process, you start with a message, the message is encoded, the message is then transmitted, the message is received, and the message is decoded or understood.
I'm gonna just
most
pause the
times
video there.
in some form of communication, you have.
I think this is something we should talk about because
Really?
this thing is at the core what is communication, because I feel a lot of people don't understand what communication is. We just assume I talk to you, you understand, and boom. But it's a cycle. So I know you see in my screen too, because well, I shared, that's the beauty of technology.
Yeah.
But you see how we started this as a message. Like to me, I just talking to you, but it's really a coded message that you then decode and understand. But if you look at this and think of the communication cycle, what do you think is some of the challenges that normally happen?
Well, if you're around my age, sometimes I remember back in high school, like sometimes you would hear a rumor about yourself, and it sometimes always has just a tiny bit of truth to it, but it's because something went wrong in the communication is why it usually gets messed up. Right? It's like a game of telephone, really. The message it starts off with is almost never the message it ends with, right? Or I don't know. It's like working for CNC3. Like, I don't know. It just communication sometimes, especially amongst young people, unless it's not using a phone, and even when it's using a phone, it always, the decoding part, it doesn't register.
But you see, and that's the whole thing about communication. Is a skill in itself, and it can be taken for granted at times, I believe, because you see, it's literally a encoded message that people are going, be it non-verbal or verbal, and from there we go into more. So, and many people just assume, yes, understand communication actually, but I think understanding that can help change and bridge the gap a lot of times between understanding different generations. And don't mind, sorry if I rush in the video, but I think in the future in the jail, she talks about the different generations and how they go into understanding the different messages. But before I dive into that, let me just play the video and we go talk about it. So
let's continue.
Just watch. Go watch it. And
Have a transmitter. and an encoder. So person to person, this is typically what the process would look like. You begin with a message is encoded, it's transmitted, received by the encoder, and then decoded. But sometimes communication can be a little blurred or clouded by certain things that happen in the middle of that process, which would impact how a person receives and understands the message. So in terms of understanding how communication is impacted by COVID-19 with regards to the youth, we want to have a little background into different generations and maybe their backgrounds, so we'll understand the difference. So we have baby boomers, or those born between 1946 and 1964. They would have created this whole live to work lifestyle. It was, post World War, and they felt like, okay, well, they may not make it to this ripe old age. I have to work to live, to ensure I can live. I can take care of myself as long as I live. And these people, they value interpersonal communication. They want to talk, they want to sit down, they want to have it out. Then we have Generation X. These people were born between 1965 and 1980. They are often referred to as the forgotten generation due to them having the highest rates of divorced parents. Well, this is an American reference. Not sure what it would look like in Trinidad and Tobago. They are more focused on work-life balance, right? Finding that perfect match between working and enjoying life. And they are largely entrepreneurial. So a lot of people within this generation have started their own businesses. Then we come to millennials, which is a buzzword. And because of the definition of youth, I believe we're going 13 to 35, millennials fall into the youth bracket as well. So born between 1981 and 1995, they are often seen as being addicted to technology. They can be seen as narcissistic because of this addiction to technology. So they focus on me. They created and proliferated social media. So millennials would have been responsible for creating Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, right? A lot of the apps that we see today that are heavily in use, Instagram, right? They would have been created and popularized by millennials. So that also adds to the whole perception of us, I have to say us, being narcissistic, because what else is social media but posting about yourself, right? Primarily. This generation is also most likely to suffer from and seek help for mental health issues. So depression, anxiety, other mental health disorders or illnesses, they are more likely to recognize, okay, I have a problem and it's okay for me to go seek professional help for that. Then we have Generation Z. So we have a lot of our secondary school youth falling into this bracket as well, right? Fondly known as Gen Z. They're born between 1996 and 2015, right? So this is the first truly digital native generation. I often joke sometimes with my godchildren. I feel like they were born with cell phones in their hands or tablets.
Let me just pause the video there,
Isaiah.
I'm going to just pause it right there. What you think already? Let me hear your thoughts about that comparison of the different generations and how we communicate on and how it relates to like. Let me hear your thoughts.
Well, let's start with boomers. Now I want to believe, communicate with each other much better than we in Gen Z, being born in a completely different era without phones or internet or I don't know, electricity. I don't know. But and then there's Gen X, which I have never heard of Gen X. You?
I mean, I have. I've heard about it. Yeah.
Are you a part of Gen X?
I see that type of information. I really want to sell out right now. You see, I'm one of them who some may consider me a cuss, but people don't want to know my personal details, I ask you what you think about it. You not ask me them thing, Don't come and be sipping no tea there, brother man. Brother man, we compare any generations. Let's not argue and not communicate amongst ourselves. We having a conversation.
Okie dokie. Well, then there was millennials, who she said is about me. Now, I can be honest with you. that sounds more like my generation. Like my generation, I mean, it's not that far apart, really, how much we use our phones and how much we post to social media and etc., etc., etc. I mean, geez, before coming here, I was telling a lot of people via social media that, hey, I will be here. Come look at me. Me. Right? Of
I
course.
mean, from what you're saying, it sounds as if you belong in that generation.
I mean,
As much as ages are, they say ages are number, but anyway,
well,
anyway.
I
So
mean,
I think that might be your own, you know. But you see, something that Jel pointed out in there that I think is very important. It spoke about the mental impact that it had on that generation, and going into that like whole mental health. I mean, this whole Church in Action spoke about mental health awareness and that kind of stuff. What do you think, or would you say is some of the mental health implications of having that me kind of thing, and almost as you said, a narcissistic approach to stuff?
Well, now I don't find myself very narcissistic.
I mean, that sounds a bit narcissistic, but I mean,
Well, anyway, enough of you. Back to me. But you see, that could, how would I put it? That could be a lot sometimes, because when it is you constantly think about yourself and don't take time to think of others, that your self-image is affected. So just before I mean, look at me. I did not have to do all of this, right? Yet here I am.
all right. Let's stop talking about you. Let's look at it from the perspective on the other generation, where you had all these people who was only studying yourself, that now you find yourself not studying yourself and focusing on others. So because of that, it changed the way from people communicate, because many times when that generation was so focused on itself, when they come and bring in other people in the picture, they was like, what? You have other people? Would you say that like that's something you've experienced from communicating with different generations, or specifically you know what generation I'm talking about? But let me hear your thoughts, because there's a conversation. Yeah, we had to have a back and forth. Communication is a cycle. It's not just about one person talking. It's about multiple people understanding and encoding. But I rambling, so let me hear you.
Do I find it difficult? Well, me personally, no. But I could see how it may be difficult intergenerational communication, right? My generation, for example, no, I wouldn't say my generation. The boomer generation, for example, the likelihood of them understanding some of our problems or issues, the reason we don't go to them is because they had it very much different, right? They just did not have to worry about certain things. They don't have to worry about growing up to fight climate change. They don't have to worry about the fact that the middle class might disappear during our lifetime. They've lived most of their lives. They've done what they could do. And then there's Gen X, who, I wouldn't lie to you, I blame for many of the problems. I mean, it wasn't my generation who invented the cell phone. Neither was it my generation who invented laptops and such and such and such.
But you just say you relate to that generation the most. Just saying.
Gen X?
Use the same generation that was relating to the whole social media boom.
No,
I can't be hearing two different things.
That right there, sir, is Gen Z. Although I will admit, I might have the mind of a 17-year-old, but my body feels like 147. So I could be.
All right, okay. You're going back and talking about yourself. Tell you already, this is not about you. This is about youth and communication. So by you perpetuating that it's always about you, not helping in the conversation, brother man, ease up on that. But there's something about the whole mental health aspect too, But I feel we could touch on that a little later in the video, because I mean I watch the video, so I know. But let me hear as we watch and we see what else it have. So I'm gonna pause the video I'm going to continue watching it, right? You ready? Cool.
Savvy, right? You all just know it off the bat. And you are more aware of social justice and political issues because of the fact that you're so social media savvy, right? So a lot of those social justice issues, would be presented primarily on social media, so they're aware of it. And you'll actually prefer face-to-face communication. As much as you love your technology, you like being with your friends, you like sitting with your family, you like talking to your friends face-to-face. So the technology can be a bit of a barrier to your communication because, well, what are we using primarily now because of COVID? Technology. So how has COVID-19 impacted communication for youth? Well, there's dramatically reduced time spent with people physically. So we're not going to school, so whereas you're looking forward to going to school, secondary school, college, university, having these experiences, being with your friends, you're no longer having that. Everybody is online, right? So there's reduced time spent with people in person. Significantly increased time spent on technological devices. So for school, it's Google Classroom, Google Meet, to spend time with your friends. It's Google Hangouts. We're using WhatsApp. We're using Microsoft Teams. It's a lot of devices, right? So you have to use these devices for work, and you have to use these devices to spend time with your friends. So it's a lot. And then there's hyperconnectivity, which is basically the fact that we can't escape being on a device, right? Because of the fact that you have to use this device to talk to your friends. You have to use this device to do your schoolwork. You have to use this device for job interviews, for work meetings. So you can't escape it. You're watching television, to relax, you're on Netflix. So it's, everything you do, you're taking online yoga classes, everything is on some form of technology. And so now we can't escape it. Diminished ability to read facial cues due to higher levels of interaction on screen and mask wearing. So we're continuing with this whole discussion of just having to be on screens a lot of the time. And of course, some things get lost in translation. So we talked a little bit earlier about the communication process. So in that in-between process between sending the message and receiving the message, I mentioned there could be some noise, some things that could impact how the message is actually received, and screens add to that. So there are several nuances that you can't get over the screen that you might be able to get in person, right? So those things are diminishing our ability to be able to recognize cues, eye contact. How are you expressing in your face? Because remember, now we have the mask, and the mask covers us from here go down. So a lot of things are lost because you can't see what's going on down here. And some people, their tone may not match what they're saying. So it's hard for you is this person joking? Are they serious? I'm not sure how they feel because you can't see their entire face, right? And that's how we've been socialized in order to understand people and derive meaning from what they say and do. A lot of it is in the face. So because of the fact that we're not face-to-face anymore, we're losing a lot of that. And lack of interpersonal skills. So again, tone, language, body language, all of these things that we learn from being around people and interacting with people often, we have, well, there's a big gap now because we're not around people as often. So it's proving a little bit difficult to communicate well because we have these barriers. And for our young people, especially for you, my darling youth, it is even more difficult because this has now become your norm. And I hate that term, the new normal, but this is what it is. So for those of you, most of you would have been accustomed being in school, looking forward to coming to school to see your friends and lime and do your schoolwork together, all of those things. And now you're forced to kind of be apart, and that is hard. So in terms of having a better
understanding. But just pause the video there because she gonna dive real deep here, talking about
Mm-hmm.
identity versus role confusion and intimacy versus isolation. Them some heavy topics. But before we go into there, I think JL real she perfectly explained what we were talking about, the difference in the non-verbal and the importance of the verbal and the non-verbal, and how we relate a lot more to this whole cycle. And tone is a big thing. And when you're WhatsApping somebody, unless you're real close to them, like I talking your brethren since you're born kind of thing, you
Mm.
just feel the tone. But aside from that, it can be very difficult at times to fully understand what a message is. And no, I mean, I didn't really want to touch on this in the conversation, but we talk about communication. Ghosting is a thing. People just misread messages at times. Or, I mean, sometimes it has some other awkward conversations, and people just feel, well, enough for this conversation, so let me
Oh boy.
disappear. But anyway, I think something that has happened that is perpetuated is because you can't have them non-verbal communications and certain things that may come across differently in person as jokes, those kind of things, or just understanding the full communication cycle. Because you see, when you only get one part of the message, it's get messed up as
Often.
opposed to the whole thing. But what you think about her explanation, Isaiah, as it referred to that whole non-verbal aspect and different the importance, especially, and don't get me started, we're going to talk just now about stuff like screen time and burnout, but the non-verbal aspect. Let me hear your thoughts.
Well, for starters, I don't know where she got the notion that we are somehow happy to go to school and do schoolwork. We are happy for the vibes that being in school brings, but
But
the school part.
I mean, I think this is the communication cycle here. I
Mhm.
think when you decoded it as being happy to go to school, is what you were saying, and I decoded it to refer to being happy to see your brethren and them in school. Your friend and them. So that's, I mean, but there's a perfect example of the communication cycle,
True.
different interpretations and different decodings. But sorry, I cut you off. You continue.
Um, but I will say there are people who either cannot read certain things, like I would say both millennials and my generation Gen Z, we cannot really eye contact, like that's something that I struggle with at times, like especially if it is I do not like you or something, right? I will struggle to make eye contact with you, or if I'm keeping a secret from you, those little things, we both struggle to read and struggle to control, because it's also very subconscious, a lot of the little signals and messages we send without saying a word. um Another thing I found interesting is just how, in fact, how people decode it. Some people get the wrong message all the time, right? What, like, especially from the prime minister, some people get the wrong message, right? And any leader for that matter, right? And some people may purposely misrepresent. Some people might just not get it. So a lot of people are listening to me, and earlier in the conversation, see how narcissistic I was, and believe that I'm actually that narcissistic in real life. I'm not. But they could misread that as me being a total egotistical loon. And I totally get that. I'm a really nice person, and I will always listen to you. Now you.
Me,
I'm attempt to listen to you now. Yes.
but
I'm listening. Yeah.
you see, I I am a person that is real read non-verbal communication. So I appreciate seeing people and being able to understand, because vibes is a thing. How much times you just now meet somebody and you kind of feel and you're saying, I could trust this person, the vibe's good, or you meet somebody and the vibe's bad. I think that relates possibly to the non-verbal aspect of communication, because subliminally you're reading their body language and trying and you're understanding. Um, I think this relates, if we kind of relate it back to the other generations. Some generations try to be so in control of having this one facade that you get a bit confused and lost. And it makes now this intergenerational communication a bit difficult. Now, I don't know if I just making up nonsense in my head or if it not making sense.
Mhm.
And I mean, I had a little plug here for CYC, for our social media, because
Of course.
I think this is a topic where hearing back from people could go bigger into different conversations, and understanding that will make communication a lot easier.
Mhm.
But having that vibes, you know what I'm talking about? Like, that ever happened to you? And you ever find that when you're trying to get the vibes of certain people who may be older or sometimes younger, even your age, is be weird, but it's almost as if they're trying to prevent you from understanding them.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, but I think to kind of go in a bit more, because if I was to bring up the last slide that JL was talking about right now, I mean, look into like the whole thing she was talking about isolation, and the different stages of understanding psychological. That in itself explains a lot. I know you yourself saw you saw just now before I paused the video
Yeah.
what those things were, and I know you just read quick, right? Because I mean, as a man that's think quick. Off the bat,
Why,
what you
in
think?
terms
I
of youth,
understand. What you think about it, right? The identity of roles and confusion in adolescence, intimacy versus isolation. Off the bat, like, explain your thoughts of these stages of psychosocial development.
Well, okay. I will choose the one in the intimacy versus what? What's that saying there?
Intimacy versus isolation. Don't worry, I get that. I know. Anyway, I'm gonna make fun of you. That could just be rude. But I was going, but go ahead, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm blind as a bat. Like, you could just say it. Anyways,
You say it, not me.
intimacy versus isolation. And now, mind you, there are people who prefer to be alone, but let's just get it off the table. You cannot be alone forever, right? You need people. We as human beings need other human beings, right? I cannot lump all my feelings on my dog all the time, right? I need someone to talk to. It could be a parent, it could be the neighbor, it could be my best friend, it doesn't matter. And now that COVID is here, we are forced to isolate, and that in itself is just, it's wild. I could imagine people going legitimately crazy. Like, it makes you wonder how prisoners, how do they survive, without that certain level of intimacy with, the people they love. And then there's role confusion, and identity. I don't know much about that one. I don't think my identity or role has been confused in any way. Then again, I would not know, because apparently I am a narcissist. But what do you think?
Me, I'm thinking that it is something that you get from those around you, like that whole identity versus role confusion. Because I think I'm not no psychologist or anything, and I mean, I have a couple of friends that are into it, and it'll be an interesting conversation to have with them. Maybe I could talk to one later, and we could continue. But
Vibes.
the whole identity versus, I think that's when you're developing an understanding about those around you and the environment, and that it leads to very much becoming who you are, and the impacts on the development it have. But instead of me rambling, let me just continue playing the video from where it is right now, and we listen to what she says, and then we could play a little more, and then we could talk. Sorry, you see, I confused in my head. Okay, then we could talk a little more about it. So let me just click play right here.
This period is crucial, and how come COVID is impacting our ability to socialize and communicate. I refer to Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. So there are 8, I think. Yes, 8. And so I'm just going to go through them briefly, but the ones that are identified, that are highlighted in purple and are a little bit bigger than the others, those are the 2 we're going to be focusing on. So we have basic trust versus mistrust, which occurs in infancy, 1 to 2 years old. Babies, they're just born, they're entering the world, they're learning about the world. Can I trust the people around me? They're figuring that out in their own little baby ways. And then we have autonomy versus shame and doubt, which occurs in early childhood. So 2 to 4 years old. Am I able to do this for myself? Will I be encouraged? So, when children, they take their first steps, or they learn to say certain things. Oh, the parents are, yay, good job. And then they feel encouraged to do more. Or are they shamed for what they do? Oh no, don't do that. And they start to doubt their abilities, right? Because they feel ashamed. Then we have initiative versus guilt. This is preschool age, 4 to 5 years old. In preschool, we're learning things. We're learning our alphabet, we're learning numbers, and then we learn to do things on our own. We learn to take the initiative. And then we have guilt, right? If we do something wrong, if we take the initiative and we don't do it, right? And then we don't want to do it anymore. And then we have industry versus inferiority, school age 5 to 12. So are you going to be industrious? The things that you've learned and you've been taking the initiative with, are you going to be industrious in your schoolwork? Are you going to create things? Or are you going to feel like, oh gosh, when I do this project, it's not as good as this person. So I feel less than, so I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to try to do it, right? And then we move into a very important stage, which is identity versus role confusion, or adolescence, right? So this occurs during 13 to 19 years old. So I'll go more into what this is, and also intimacy versus isolation, which is early adulthood, 20 to 40 years. Those 2 stages are very important, and we're going to move into that later on. Generativity versus stagnation, which is adulthood, 40 to 65 years old, and which is what kind of life have you been able to create? Do you have a legacy, or have you done nothing really with your life? And then ego integrity versus despair, maturity, 65 years and onward. Am I proud of what I've done with my life? Can I feel comfortable in myself as a person with all I've done? Or do I now feel despair for the choices that I've made or haven't made?
So, sorry, I paused there before giving you that little heads up because I feel we're starting to dive into some heavy topics there. You see how she went into explaining just the little things? Now, I want to see if you paying attention, because I know a big thing amongst youths is that we could zone out quite easily, and people say it's linked to us just having a instant access to different things. You get bored of one YouTube video, put up on it. So let me hear, now that you hear her explanation, at least the start of her explanation of these different areas, what you think?
I'll be honest with you. She didn't hold me the entire time. No offense to her, of course. I'll be honest. I did zone out. You are right. Our attention span is criminally low. But let's see.
You could do that, boy. You could do that.
To listen. Did
you know what? Okay. Since clearly your attention plan sticking, and it's not me. I watch the video and I understand it,
Mm-hmm.
So, and since this is for your benefit, how about kind of relax your brain a bit and change the pace up a bit before we continue watching. I'll have a next video by by a guy called Sergio. It's a little song and thing that girl brighten up the mood, because we talk about some heavy topics here. Psychosocial development.
A bit too heavy.
It's so just to break up that thing and kind of wake it up. Let me just play this video. So I find it right here as I'm talking to you. So I'll go and play it, right? So you ready, right? His name is Sergio. So listen carefully to what he's saying.
I am a superman in a superland, 'cause I know I can Feel like $1,000,000 as I watch the clocks and remove those blocks. You may not understand me, but I check the Almighty. He say my life is mine, fulfill my destiny. So I put on my shoe. I know just what to do. Gonna touch the sky, put on blazer and tie. Walking out the door, I'm ready to score. It is guaranteed I'm bound to succeed. Come and follow me. Let's fulfill our destiny. I come to go down, 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 down to every city and town, 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 town. Come to change up the game, 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 game. Look, they shouting my name, 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 name. So as I wake up and I open my eyes, look up and I see sunrise. One time I realize I'm conquering today. So I rise up and I looking around. Look, my people coming down. They join me to win their ground. I push the blocks away, so I put on my shoe. I know just what to do. Gonna touch the sky, put on blazer and tie. Walking out the door, I'm ready to score. Through all the fight, I go stand my ground. It's up to me to fulfill my destiny. Come and join on the journey. Yeah. I come to go down, 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 down to every city and town. Yeah. Come to change up the game, 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 game. Look, they shouting my name, 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 name. You may not understand me, but I check the Almighty. He say fulfill my destiny. So I put on my shoe. I know just what to do. Gonna touch the sky, put on blazer and tie. Walking out the door, I'm ready to score. It is guaranteed. On my way, I'm bound to succeed. On my way, I come to step on the blocks of failure. I say move out the way, move out the way. I'm taking a risk, I'm making a play. I'm clearing the path for a brand new day. I'm spreading my wings, I'm flying today. Open the doors and I'm flying today. I am a superman in a superland, 'cause I know I can. Feel like $1,000,000 as I watch the clocks and remove those blocks. Thank you.
See what I tell you. See, you ain't feeling lighter now?
I do.
Wake you up.
I
You're
do
ready to
feel
talk more and understand the whole communication process a little more and how it has affected us. You ain't feeling good now. You feel like you're in control of your destiny. And I think that's the ability of what communication could do. If you were able to understand communication in different dynamics, I feel as if you could be in control of your destiny. You don't think so?
I agree, definitely, definitely. But we, especially the younger generation, the millennials and the Gen Z, I think one of our biggest obstacles, what we have to overcome, and this stood out to me when it is, he said, they, I'm assuming they being his naysayers,
Right, we have a teacher now. All right.
understand. You see, now I could well assume that they, as I said, refers to the older generation, because when you try to talk about certain things, it is true. They either don't understand, and some of them don't attempt to understand, and that is sad. And we need to make efforts to change that. You don't think?
Yeah, I think having that understanding will really make a lot of communicating easier within different parties. Everybody will be able to do better, and by having that, we could communicate properly and move forward. Because let me see, why do you started to talk about? I mean, I see you put out board and thing like as a teacher and thing, and about the importance of understanding. Why do you have any times when that importance and understanding led to better communication?
Oh yes, definitely, definitely. Sometimes I will not lie to you. Sometimes to get certain people to understand, it may get drastic. You might have to change your tone. You might have to move your hands all over the screen to make sure you're not losing your audience, right? You might have to dress up nice. You might have to have, whatever, right? But when it is they finally get it, when it finally hits them right in their noggin, it's almost magical sometimes.
I get you. And that's the beauty of good communication and why having that understanding amongst everybody, no, not only youth, but even all the other generations, and understanding how they communicate and how we communicate could bridge that gap to make a difference. So I think a good takeaway from here is possibly the key to communication is understanding, which is ironic because it's part of the communication cycle already. But I mean, just in our conversation, right, we've seen already how different messages could get interpreted and understood differently. Now, one may argue that that could be related to the different generations, but I mean, last time I checked, we in the same generation. But I think it highlights that communication isn't a problem amongst different generations, but also amongst youth as a whole, because it's more than just we talking. It's a lot about the non-verbals part of it too, and the different ways of interpreting and understanding the messages. What do you think? You agree?
Definitely, fully 100% agree with you there, especially about the part that we being in the same generation. I 100% agree.
I mean, but it's the facts. You feel like going just come and start a lie just so? I give you a good presentation. I know you're trying to tell me how I lying to you.
And when did I say that? Did I say that, or did you get offended from
implied it with your non-verbals. You see me on a video call, so you're
My
already seeing. I understand, and I see your non-verbals and interpreting it.
I was testing you. I was.
Sure, you was testing me. You
That's what
was
I meant
testing me.
I meant to do that. I swear.
Communication. That is the cycle. That's the understanding. What? I don't know. I know a real. We end up on this call and real watching this video. I don't know what's your time looking like, and if you have enough time to go further into this way, because I mean, we start to talk about some heavy topics there.
I mean,
so
still don't
how
have
your
all
time?
I'm pretty sure I have all the time in the world. So why not? You brought us this far.
All right. Well, if you say that, wait, hold up. You wouldn't believe. Remember how I was telling you how I had some friends who into psychology and stuff? One calling right now.
Love that.
And funny enough, her name is Carleen, and I looked at this video, and right after it, she gave a very beautiful meditation after. One would say almost like food for thought, where each part of the presentation was part of one big soup, literal food for thought. So before she hung up, and me talk too much, I think I'll add her into the call right now. So, hey, hi, Carleen.
Hello.
So I was now talking to Isaiah here, and I was showing him the presentation from GEL. You remember that one that we looked at?
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
And remember how you and I did the meditation after? The food for thought, as I like to call it.
All right. So your brethren Isaiah willing to try it?
Well, he said he had nothing to do with his life, so
all right.
be more than open.
Wonderful. So just to help us, make sense of all of this, because yeah, jail talk was heavy, but it was helpful. She had a lot of nuggets in that video. So I just want to invite you both to just relax wherever you are. If you have anything on your lap, move it from your lap. Don't let anything distract you right now. And if you feel comfortable, I want to invite you to close your eyes. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can just focus on one thing in the room and really try to block out the distractions around you. Take a deep breath in with me and then let it out. You're going to take another deep breath in and let it out. Last time, take a deep breath in and let it out. So just imagine all that JL said, all that you all discussed is in this big bowl of soup. Whatever kind of soup you like. Fish broth, a spicy dal, callaloo soup, a chicken foot soup, any kind of soup you like. Just imagine that you have this big bowl of soup in front of you. But all this talk about youth and communication. Now you get a chance to take a small bowl for yourself. Now this bowl of soup make to share, but you get to take some for yourself. See yourself pouring out your portion into your bowl, your private bowl. Do feel dumpling and whatever it is you have in your soup too, Now, your portion is one thing that you want to take away with you from this entire conversation. We listened to all that JL had to say, and it was a lot. But just one thing. Was that one thing that resonated with you about youth and communication, the barriers to communication, the different stages of communication, whatever it is? Just hold on to that one thing and make sure you fill your bowl with it. Name it. Name whatever it is. Now, this communication can't be done by one man alone. As you all remember in the video, there's a sender and a receiver. So we can't do this communication thing alone. In the video, they talk about generations. Yes, we know there are several gaps across the generations, and that in itself is a barrier. But we need each other. We need all the generations, even though we don't understand each other all the time. We need each other. So whoever you are, a parent, a Gen Z, youth, a millennial, a grandfather, grandmother, whoever you are, whichever generation you come from, you have a part to play. We all have a part to play in understanding each other better and communicating more effectively. So in this moment, as the soup nourishes our body and prepares us for action, we're all going to commit to one action that we can do to do better. As the food nourishes our body, may the information equip us for action. So just wherever you are, just think about one thing that you can commit to make this communication better. And in your mind, you're just going to say, I will. And you finish that sentence. I will. I will listen. I will aim to understand. I will be more aware of the way that I communicate. I will ask questions. Now just hold on to that. Allow the soup to nourish your body. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Take another deep breath in and let it out. Last time. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Invite you to open your eyes.
Well then.
Oh. Isaiah. I hope you make Sean full up a bowl of soup, you know. And I hope you make your eye statements.
My bowl of soup was like this big, I swear.
Very good. I glad to hear that.
That's great. That's it's almost as if, Carleen, that's the first time we went through that. It does the job so perfectly. And I mean, I didn't even fully get to appreciate the importance of meditation because, well, we didn't really get to go through the whole presentation as yet, but hopefully in the future we'll get to go through it, yeah? But I think, you see, in meditation, you're focusing on different parts of what it could do, what action, we could go out and do. Just like in church, an action is what can we do kind of thing. I think that very much, the meditation highlights that and it focuses on not the whole thing, but just a small part that you can now grow on. And correct me if I'm wrong. To me, that's beautiful.
Yeah, man, of course. And even as the song, the guy who sang, Sergio, I am a Superman because I know I can. I feel like $1,000,000 and now I can move those blocks. I don't know if you caught that in the song, but those lines, yo, the little we can do, we could move those blocks, move those barriers. So yeah, man.
Yep. So, Isaiah, what was your thoughts on the meditation?
No, I must say that it was very frightening because I did get a lot of relaxed and I was on a stool and I thought I would have fell over of thousands of people, but I did not. So thank you for not allowing that. But it really, it was a true meditation. I did feel at ease. The music and your voice is just really comforting. So love that for you.
Thank you.
Make an effort.
I mean, so Isaiah, I know you're saying had nothing to do, but I don't know if after that meditation you want to take a break or anything before going forward. Because I mean, I know it was a short talk we wanted a little bit, but it's been so much going on, and I think it's best for you to take the time to go and digest exactly, meditate a little more, and wrap it all up, because he's always like to save a little soup for later. So, and drink that soup over time, and hopefully we'll be able to come back and dive in a bit more, go finish the rest. But I think I watch any time, and I mean, I want to sound boastful as a busy man, so I think I may have to wrap up and tell everybody thank you very much. Break the third barrier and tell everybody here thank you very much for tuning in to Church in Action yet again. Tonight was, I don't know, I think it was the final night, but don't hold me on that because where there's a will, there's a way, so we might be back. But thank everybody for watching tonight and even watching all the Church in Action series this whole week. It was a beautiful job. And I just want to tell everybody I don't want to be big and say thank you on behalf of everybody, but I think maybe that might be what it is. So it's about that time, guys. I want to thank you all for coming in and having this awkward conversation. It's something that we always do at CYC almost every other week, if not weekly, on our Instagram Live, where we just come together and talk. So without further ado, I just want to tell everybody good night and thank you so very much. See you all. Be safe. Continue to pray.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.